Hey guys, Fitness Science here, and this video is about the battle going on between longevity and muscle growth and why there is actually some conflict between being jacked and living for, say, 100 years.
You ain't been doing the education. You don't realize I'm so frustrated. You ain't got the answer. You ain't got the answer.
It all starts in 1972 when on Easter Island, scientists discovered from a bacteria living on the island a natural product called rapamycin. As rapamycin started to be investigated, researchers found that it was a potent inhibitor of something called mTOR, which is a complicated protein complex involved in many functions in the body, but most notably, it is responsible for cell growth, proliferation of new cells and existing cells, cell survival, and most importantly for bodybuilding, muscle protein synthesis. It is the key regulatory pathway in which new muscle is laid down on our skeleton and how we actually hypertrophy those muscles. Basically, it's a key regulator of muscle growth, and it responds to a number of external stimuli, including amino acids, growth factors, hormones such as testosterone and other androgens, oxidative stress, and interestingly, even oxygen. And when activated, mTOR goes to work making new proteins, which results in basically more cellular growth, more muscle cells, and a multiplication of the existing cells there. And obviously, this is what bodybuilders try to target: activation of mTOR almost constantly through protein intake, training, diet, sleep. So pretty much all the top bodybuilders that you see on stage have mTOR turned on pretty much 24/7. However, as researchers started to push further down the mTOR world, they actually found that mTOR was key in aging and longevity. Really interestingly, inhibition of mTOR in almost all the research shows a consistent lifespan improvement in almost every animal studied. Time and time again in worms, rats, mice, fruit flies, yeast insects, and other mammals, big, small, medium, inhibition of mTOR always improves their lifespan. And mTOR's ability to extend lifespan of an animal seems to be as a result of its ability to act as a nutrient sensor. mTOR can be turned on by nutrients and is a good sensor of nutrient availability in the body, but in particular, turned on strongly by proteins and amino acids. And this makes sense when you look at the research that caloric restriction and restricting the calories of animals almost always results in a turning off of mTOR and a improvement in lifespan in the animals. Basically, less calories means less activation of mTOR, which means less stress on the body overall, less proteins being made. mTOR is turned off when nutrient availability is low. And in fact, in some studies, just removing 2 or 3 amino acids, even just 1 in some studies, has shown to inhibit mTOR and improve lifespan in animals as well. But the central question you might be wondering is, why does it matter, and why is mTOR actually involved in aging and longevity? Like, what are the actual cellular mechanisms behind why mTOR may actually shorten our lifespan if turned on constantly for 24/7 for our entire life? Here are some actual mechanisms as to why you don't want it turned on 24/7 if you want to live to 100. There are some key areas, keeping in mind that aging is a function of multiple processes at the cellular level, but here are the key ones in relation to mTOR. Firstly, if mTOR is turned on forever, the body loses the ability to control the protein degradation and protein cycle of new cells being made. What I mean by this is the chronic overexpression of mTOR, if turned on constantly, leads to a lot of proteins being made and a lot of oxidative stress on the body, and has been implicated in diseases such as Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. And it's really a volume game as well. If you have multiple proteins being made, there is a chance, and a higher chance, that a misfolded protein is not going to be recognized and could turn out to be cancerous. But just putting that oxidative stress on the body constantly is not really that good for longevity. And it makes sense. If mTOR is turned on, trying to create more and more proteins constantly, this hyperactivity of mTOR leads to many, many proteins, which is good for bodybuilding, but in terms of oxidative stress and inflammation over decades, not so good if you want to live to 100. Secondly, mTOR directly affects mitochondrial function, which is key in aging. Problems with mitochondrial function are almost always brought up in the research looking at aging, and aging cells very, very often have mitochondrial dysfunction. It's associated basically with aging and the death of cells. Because we're getting so many cells created, when mTOR is turned on constantly, especially skeletal muscle cells. That constant cell cycle and the constant death of new cells is putting a lot of reactive oxygen species into our body, a lot of oxidative stress, and again, it's looking at that inflammation pathway. Holding on to that inflammation over years and years with mTOR constantly turned on is going to shorten your lifespan, and it has been shown in the research it does shorten lifespan of almost all animals studied. And mTOR increases senescent cell growth as well. Most cells have a set life, but senescent cells don't actually die off when they should. mTOR actually inhibits cells dying off at the proper moment. Again, relating to point number 2, this constant accumulation of new cells isn't great for inflammation or reducing oxidative stress over our lifetime. So is it all doom and gloom? Are we left with a choice of being jacked or living a long life? And does it have to be this black and white? Well, no. Like everything in life, there's a balance. There are things that you can directly do to affect how brutal mTOR is going to be on your lifespan. Firstly, we need to look at another protein complex called AMPK. Now, AMPK is an inhibitor of mTOR and is turned on when we do cardiovascular exercise, particularly hard and long endurance cardiovascular activity. Inhibits mTOR. So if you were interested in reducing oxidative stress and turning off mTOR to a degree, incorporating some cardiovascular training into your strength training would be a good way to do this, just to balance things out a little bit. At a cellular level, in terms of supplementation, there are a few key compounds that can inhibit different parts of the mTOR pathway. Resveratrol, caffeine, curcumin, the polyphenols in green tea, and nicotinamide riboside are all compounds that can inhibit mTOR at different stages in its pathway. Resveratrol I did a video on, but basically it targets a protein within the pathway called SIRT1, SIRT1, which plays an inhibitory role on mTOR. Nicotinamide riboside increases blood levels of NAD+, and further acts on SIRT1 to decrease the effects of mTOR. And the good news is that both nicotinamide riboside and resveratrol can be taken orally and show very good bioavailability when taken in this route. These would be 2 good supplements if you were interested in just balancing out your mTOR pathway with muscle growth. Another inhibitor along the more pharmaceutical route is metformin, and this seems to directly act on the protein kinase mTOR. Not to mention, it has very good effects on insulin and glucose levels in the blood anyway. I think this would be a good supplement to add in to your protocol, especially if you're a top-level bodybuilder. Overall, there is a bit of a balance that needs to be struck, I feel, between top-level bodybuilding or the bodybuilding lifestyle in general and longevity. If you're very interested in living longer, this would be of interest. And I would be willing to bet almost everything on the fact that bodybuilders who are at the top level and who pretty much have mTOR turned on chronically, 24/7 turned on via training, protein supplementation, significant use of exogenous hormones which directly stimulate mTOR, I would bet that these guys are significantly reducing their quality and length of their life. But who knows, maybe they don't care either. But I do think a good balance can be struck. I don't think you need to go out there and be like, oh shit, I need to turn off mTOR immediately, have no mTOR activation in my body at all. Turning off mTOR completely or inhibiting it completely has also been detrimental in the animal studies. But I think there is a balance between muscle protein synthesis and longevity. And to give your body a rest from chronic mTOR hyperactivity or overactivity, supplements like resveratrol and nicotinamide would be awesome to add into your protocol. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, guys. Would you rather live, say, an extra 10 years but not be as jacked, or do you not care and you'd just rather be jacked as possible and not care about how long you live? Let me know in the comments, guys. I'm really interested to see your thoughts. And if you're more interested in delving deeper into mTOR, drop a comment below. I'll see you in the next video. Thanks so much, guys. Fitness Science signing out.